Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Mega Man Rock Force. In the last part, I defeated Warman and Portman, so now it's time to continue on by going after Thermo Man. Based off of thermometers, but really I think he should be called Feverman, for a reason I'll show off soon enough. Now, unlike the three other stages, Thermo Man focuses less on gimmicks or puzzles. This one is more of a straight-up normal stage. The main gimmick of this stage, one of the main things here is that because we have a combination of Virus Man, as well as, I believe, Photon Man, we have enemies from both of those stages. We have the flowers from before, as well as the droplets of, in this case, lava. Before in Virus Man's stage, it was droplets of those virus pellets. But in addition to that, we have these Moai statues, or some sort of statues, which release these fireballs, which can be bounced off by shooting at them. Now, in order to destroy those blocks over there, in order to progress to the next part of the stage, you must direct those fireballs to hit them. This becomes a little bit more challenging as those fireballs move a bit faster on harder difficulty settings. Adding to the challenge is all those virus enemies which can infect you and reverse your controls, so be on the lookout as always. And of course the Photon player makes short work of all these enemies, particularly the virus type enemies. But of course getting through these segments with the faster moving tongues, as well as all these lava droplets, makes it a bit challenging. I especially want to take care of those flower enemies as quickly as possible, mainly because the petals don't release at a certain occasion. Here's the mini-boss at this stage. And he's dead. Normally he would fire a string of fire which would trial you for 3 occasions, similar to the Wily Capsule fights, or a series of sparks. There are other people who would call this Digestion Man, mainly because we're now going to basically the digestion track. Here we're going through the mouth of this stage, basically, with all these teeth from going up and down. Note that these teeth basically act like spikes, so don't touch them. This is a relatively straightforward part of the stage, though be on your lookout so you don't jump too high or quickly fall into that spiky pit. That last part killed me a few times because I misjudged when to slide down. But compared to the longness of Portman's stage, which I actually later realized when playing it through with Tornado Man, it can be done much faster if you're less cautious. I presume this part of the stage represents the throat and the pathway down into the stomach. So I suppose now we're in the stomach of the stage. Here's a more hazardous version of that gimmick I was talking about. We have to direct these fireballs into the pit. Oh, but over here we have this lava droplet, so we have to make sure we don't get hit like I just did there, and don't fall in the pit. This happened 2 or 3 times in my practice runs, which is why I decided to just use the charade clone as a form of insurance. Here's where it gets a bit devious. Because we have this lava droplet, the tongue moving left and right over here, and that flower, you have to position the fireball so it hits there, but from all the other times I'm not really skilled enough, I usually get hit by one of the fireballs or the lava droplets. It's kind of annoying. I could have used the charade clone more wisely, but I didn't really trigger it correctly. In this case I actually got it, surprisingly enough, but in most other cases I completely failed. Be careful in this segment, there's a Moa or statue which will fire a fireball right over here. Be on your lookout. To be fair though, when playing through this stage as Bomb Man, aka Feverman's weakness, it's much simpler. And boy, that was kind of stupid for me to do, to release the charade clone right as the fireball was coming here. This was one of the main reasons why I believe I didn't have to. in previous runs where I had to use an E-tank. Thankfully though, Eddie was very cooperative and restored most of my health. Alright, Feverman, aka Thermo Man, he has mainly 3 tactics. When he raises his arm like this, remember to jump over him as he'll immediately rush to whatever side the screen he's pointing towards. On harder difficulties this goes really fast, so be on your lookout. And yeah, especially when dodging these fireballs, it can be quite annoying. The other attack is when he jumps into the lava stream in the background, travels to another part, you can see it by his shadow, and then releases a string of fireballs. Another one is when he raises or separates his head. It floats up and it throws a series of 2 or 3 fireballs. Or a spread of 3 or 4 fireballs. It's not too difficult to dodge if you get the hang of it, but in combination when he does that rolling punch attack, it's quite annoying to dodge. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I had to use an E-tank, unfortunately. On normal difficulty settings, dodging that charging punch attack is much simpler to do. And he's still vulnerable when he releases his head, unlike Virus Man. So a relatively straightforward stage, and not very focused on gimmicks or unique stuff like War Man or Port Man. This will change when I go to Trill Man, and boy, Trill Man stage is quite thrilling in a way. I say with air quotes. This is one of the stages I was dreading to do for a long while, and somehow I found it surprisingly easier than I expected. As Trill Man was saying here, he basically strapped a bomb to us. That Mega Man head, for every hit, if it takes any damage from anything, basically any of these spikes or an enemy pellet, the counter on its head will go down by 1. Thankfully, spikes are instant death. If that counter reaches 0, you instantly die. And seeing I can only take 4 hits, and this is hard mode, yeah, you can see where this is going and how challenging this will be. Thankfully, if Mega Man gets hit, the counter on the top will not decrease. On easy mode, the counter is 8, on normal difficulty, the counter is 6, and on hard difficulty, like I'm playing on, the counter is 4. And don't take the E-tank over there on the left, it's a trap. Unless you're on easy difficulty and willing to eat some hits. It takes at least 2 or 3 hits, I believe. But I suggest considering as many of them as possible, as boy, this stage really wants you to take some close risks while traveling. Thankfully, there are not as many enemies as in Port Man's, War Man's, or Thermo Man stage. Or this would be even more of a hassle to get through, and a nightmare. Even then, if you're trying to do, well, I'll show it off this sooner or later. If you're trying to do a perfect run of this stage, it's even more of a nightmare. For every time you fire, I forgot to mention this earlier, every time you fire with any weapon, or actually just press the fire button, the head-shaped bomb will float up a bit, before starting to float back down. Note that when it starts to float back down, it slowly begins to accelerate, so be careful of a sudden acceleration. But even if you run out of pellets on screen, you can continuously mash the fire button and you'll still go up, which is nice, like in segments here. This is more of a problem with Robot Masters who have weapons that need to be more precisely aimed. Though, with Mega Man and Nitro Man, who is Trill Man's weakness, it's not too bad, although there are some segments which are, yeah, this one is quite a thing. And segments like this. Even in normal difficulty this is quite challenging, but adding to the fact that, well, you have the spike moving up and down, which was added in hard mode, yeah. Thankfully though, you can still, even though you can't normally fire when you're sliding, you can still move the head bomb up and down when you're pressing the fire button while sliding, which is why I just ate the hit with the spike. And yeah, this segment, oh, I feel sorry for people like Super Metal Sonic 360 who are trying to do this stage on hard mode, Buster Only Perfect. That segment is so much of a pain to get through. Mainly because what you're supposed to do is slide under that or slide when that circular spike thing is moving up and down, and then slide left and right until the other one opens up, or leaves an opening. The problem is it's kind of finicky and you really have to keep shooting so the headpiece doesn't actually touch one of the spikes. But I decided to just eat a hit as I really don't want to worry about that. It's hard enough already. So once again I feel sorry for those people who are trying to do a perfect run this. In that case I would assume this would be one of the hardest stages in the game. But surprisingly enough, compared to Thermo Man stage, this took less retakes in order to complete, strangely enough. I don't know why. Tero Man took about 20 or 30 attempts to get correctly, but this one only took up to about 8 or 10. Mainly because of the less number of enemies. Here's the last segment. Decided to stock up an E-Tech energy. We're supposed to guide the bomb through this spike maze. Adding to the hazards all these rolling spikes, of course. And of course there's the shield attacker, so I decided to just eat a hit. And eat another hit here, but once again I made it to the end of the stage and I don't need to worry about that headpiece anymore. Note that head bomb shape will depend on which Rock Force member you're playing as. If you're playing as Nitro Man, it'll be a bigger head piece of Nitro Man. Anyways, skipping ahead because of an issue with the recording. But here's Trill Man. Trill Man has basically 3 methods of attack. One is where he just signals and trolls all these Trill Seekers, or these orbs, which I'll call Trill Seekers. Occasionally, he'll duck down with an attention mark, meaning that there will be a wall coming from above, as this is traveling on a train through quite a bit of obstacles. There's also, after a while, he'll also jump at tree hops, similar to what Shadow Man does in Mega Man 3. Basically, on his third jump, you'll be able to slide under him, so do it then. Of course, the other annoying thing is that the Trill Seeker orbs will absorb your shots, but they can be destroyed. But other than that, Trill Man is not too hard to take care of as long as you take care to avoid all those obstacles on the train. Those are really damaging. And as I promised earlier, I'll be showing off the fights with the new Fusion Robot Masters with their weaknesses. Though this time, instead of using the Robot Master weaknesses from Mega Man, I'll be showing off the Rock Force members that are strong against him. But before that, I'll be skipping ahead to Deathman. The Deathman fight is basically the same as it was in the previous version, though Deathman's horizontal sky throw has been removed, probably due to difficulty balancing reasons. The other change that has been added is some changes to Justice Man and Mega Man's dialogue. It really contextualizes the story more and gives better justification for what Justice Man is doing. We have mostly the same thing as with robots perishing under the laws, but he's more justifying it with talking about human limitations and a few other things. It's a nice segue into Mega Man X, if it is. And Mega Man mentions why he actually created the Rock Force, or hinting to, not for avoiding retirement, was coming in Mega Man 9. In this case, though, it's more complicated. We'll see what happens at the end of the game. And Justice Man says Mega Man's connection to humanity is too strong, so, well, I guess we'll have to go after him again. There's one more cutscene added in between, though. Before, you would just go directly to Justice Man's castle, but here we have another talk with Dr. Light, who says that there's grave danger if we don't get Justice Man back, although, inevitably, he won't be able to come back. Now, note that the previous cutscene with Justice Man actually changes if you're playing as a different Rock Force member, which is nice. But as I was saying earlier, it's time to show off the Fusion Robot Master weaknesses against the Rock Force members. Starting out with Warman. Warman is weak against Nightman's Night Crush, though this is one of the hardest matchups, mainly because Nightman is kind of a slow character. What you're supposed to be doing is, you have to throw your mace just as Nightman is doing his attack. but you have to move away just a little bit so you don't get hurt. Adding to the problem is that Nightman cannot slide when he's throwing his mace, so it's a battle of reactions. And each of them do huge amounts of damage to each other. Alright, on to Portman, who's weak against Tornado Man. Tornado Man makes really short work of him, but make sure to use a propeller or bounce attack on him. In fact, I think it's possible to kill Portman in just one go, or one cycle before, and prevent him from going into the second phase. And like I said in the previous part, each Rock Force member has a unique head spy. Alright, on to Thermo Man, who is weak against Bomb Man. And really though, this is kind of less similar to what happens with Photon Man's boss fight. I repeatedly just keep throwing bombs and just use it as a shield of sorts, hitting him eventually and avoiding most damage. In fact, the bombs will explode on impact with the fireballs, which makes it even more simple. So, made short work of him. Trill Man is weak against Nitro Man, which is fitting really, considering Nitro Man's motorcycle ride is quite thrilling. And really this also makes short work of him, mainly because of how the wheel cutter's delayed shots make it a bit easier to dodge stuff. In fact, it would be even easier if I used the wheel cutter as a chainsaw, but I don't want to risk getting hit by those Trill Seeker orbs. But really though, in this case I was able to perfect run it. Now, on to Death Man, who is weak against Cut Man, which I found to be a little bit odd. I thought that Nightman would be strong against Death Man. Oh well. Same strategies before. Ow. But he lost his horizontal sky throw, so that makes it a little bit simpler. Unfortunately though, this was kind of a funny moment. I somehow was able to kill him and he killed me at the same time. Oops. So yeah, time to repeat this. But really though, as I said earlier, it's basically the same boss fight without the horizontal sky throw that man used to have. Though, the time when he actually throws the sky in the middle of the screen, that's still quite annoying for me to dodge, as I usually confuse it with something else. Otherwise, he's as simple as he was before. Though, very challenging if you're playing as one of the other Rock Force members, especially Nightman or Dive Man, or Mega Man with just the Mega Buster. As I said, because we are playing as Cutman, or any other member of the Rock Force, the dialogue is a bit different. As Justice Man will say soon enough, Cutman's personality is from Mega Man Powered Up, aka the more childlike one, where he mentions Justice Man turned to a bad guy, and a few other things. Pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to see each of the Rock Force members' reactions to what Justice Man says. Sadly though, the next cutscene will always default to Mega Man, not to the member of the Rock Force you're playing as, which is kind of a shame. Alrighty then, we're back to going after Justice Man. So, in the next part, I'll be showing off the Justice Castle Stage 1 with Dive Man, as well as the new and improved Justice Castle Stage 3. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day. Doodles!